After doing a tier list of all the Bond movies that I've seen, felt like the next logical step would be doing a tier list on all the Bond games that I have played. Now, I do want to mention that there's quite a few of these that I have not played. There were a lot of Bond games for the Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, as well as one rather important one for the Mega Drive, or Genesis if you're from the States like I am, called James Bond The Duel. I've also never played 007 Racing, the PC version of Nightfire, or either of the Quantum of Solace games, or one I've heard a lot of good things of, but just haven't got around to yet, Bloodstone. With that, let's jump right into this. 007 for the Game Boy. Of all the games on this list, I think this is the most obscure, which is a real shame as I think it's a solid entry, provided that you're a fan of classic Legend of Zelda. The gameplay is very similar, except with a more contemporary setting, as well as contemporary weapons. While the game does have guns, I found it a bit awkward to use them, so I ended up just sticking with the sword. Somehow it just translated better with Metal Gear. Metal Gear. You know, that'd be an interesting idea for a ROM hack, is what if you take the gameplay, or the stealth mechanics that should have been in the original Metal Gear, but combine it with the setting and the characters of the James Bond universe. Maybe somebody's made it already. B tier. Great game, but rather lackluster compared to the others in this list. Goldeneye. Between the great debate of Goldeneye and Perfect Dark, I was always a bigger fan of Perfect Dark, but that doesn't mean that I hate Goldeneye. On the contrary, I love the game. The problem is I've just played it so much that there's just not really anything else for me to discover. I've overturned every rock, every pixel, pretty much seen just about everything the game has to offer. Well, Perfect Dark still has a bit of mystery. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the multiplayer. It's a game mode that I love, but I can rarely ever find people interested in playing it. Maybe GoldenEye X added bot support, so I can sort of capture those multiplayer games. Can I put it anywhere other than S? Tomorrow Never Dies on the PlayStation 1. As a follow-up to GoldenEye, this game falls flat. In terms of Bond games, it still doesn't stand very tall. The controls are clunky, the live system is a terrible idea, aiming is more trouble than it's worth sometimes, enemies can snipe you without you being able to see anything, the graphics pop in and out, but the game does have a fantastic soundtrack. C tier. Tomorrow Never Dies on the Nintendo 64. A far superior game. A bit shorter than I would like it, but it is so much more fun than the PS1 counterpart. We also have multiplayer back. And as I mentioned, You Only Live Twice is my favorite of the Bond movies. So I absolutely adore the volcano base. I just have a hard time beating Hans though. A tier. The world is not enough for PlayStation 1. Well, Tomorrow Never Dies feels like a practice run. The world is not enough. I feel like took all the kinks that were discovered in Tomorrow Never Dies and found a way to iron them out to make this game. I will admit, the controls are still a little clunky, but I found myself having a much more fun time with this as opposed to the tank controls that we have in this game. I think it also helps that this one is a first-person shooter rather than a third-person shooter. Kind of a odd choice to begin with, as if it wasn't for GoldenEye, this game probably wouldn't exist, and that was a first-person shooter. You'd think it would have tried to follow with the footsteps, but they're just like, no, we want to try our own thing. Alright, that's awful. Let's do this instead. B tier. World is not enough on the Nintendo 64. This one is a diamond in the rough. I never even knew this game existed until many years after it came out. It's a bit of a semi-sequel to Goldeneye. However, this one, you got improved graphics, you got cutscene, you got voice acting, you got reload animations. On a technical perspective, this game is superior. However, the main things that really keep it from being a masterpiece in my eyes is, well, it runs at like half the speed Goldeneye does. I guess they wanted to keep the frame rate consistent while Goldeneye can be inconsistent, but when Goldeneye is running well, it runs much more smoothly. But this game, when it's running well, it just kind of feels like you're still kind of trudging along as if you're wearing boots made out of solid lead. And the other big thing, the City of Walkways 2. I don't care what anybody says, the guided missile doesn't work. Every time I try it, the missile just does a U-turn and goes right to my head, killing me, and then you gotta start the whole level all over again. And on top of that, the helicopter in this level eats up that health bar way too quickly. In spite of it all, A tier, Agent Under Fire. Who would have thought that this game started out as a remaster for the N64 version of The World Is Not Enough? But then again, some of the signs were there, as it feels like some of the sound effects, as well as just kind of the general soul of the PS1 version, kind of permeates through this game as well. And this isn't necessarily a hill I'm going to die upon, but I want to make the claim that this one has the best multiplayer experience on offer. You can adjust everything. You can adjust what weapons you want. You can adjust the gravity. You can adjust power-ups that you want. You can adjust if you want to have your own, like, Spider-Man whipping ability called the Q-Claw. You can have jetpacks. You can customize the speed. The only thing you really can't customize is the music, unfortunately, but, well, I'm just having so much fun that I barely even get a chance to listen to the music with this game. As for the story mode, I like it, but it somehow gets a little duller with each playthrough. I remember this game taking several weeks to beat with my cousin and I tag teaming it. Now I could probably beat the game at the longest in about 4 hours. But still a lot of fun. A tier. Nightfire. It very much feels like EA was slowly polishing their craft with each entry they had in the Bond series. While I love Agent Under Fire, I feel like this one is a better quality game. But at the same time, I do kind of like the rough edges that Agent Under Fire presents. Still though, it's a solid entry in the Bond series. A tier as well. So, am I the only one that would love to see a Goldeneye port of the level exchange? Everything or nothing. I feel like this is the most polished Bond game that has ever come out. Fantastic story, great acting. For the most part, I think the graphics still hold up pretty well. However, it probably could use a bit of an HD texture to bring it up to modern standards. The gameplay is great, the gadgets are great, and if you were to ask me what I think is the best Bond game, I would say this one. But it all really depends on the day, which one of these two I'd say are my favorites. Getting all the platinum medals in this game is one of my proudest achievements. In fact, it's still a rare thing, as only a handful of videos actually show the legendary platinum gun. Where I feel the ball unfortunately drops is in the multiplayer. I have very fond memories where my sister and my cousin plowed through the entirety of the cooperative campaign while I was the keeper of the strategy guide, the one that was able to help out with their mission. Unfortunately, I was nowhere in their caliber of it, but they were able to unlock everything. Of course, that is the cooperative story mode. There is a versus mode in this game. The only problem is there's only 3 maps, and 2 of them you have to unlock with the cooperative story. And let me tell you, it's no easy feat unlocking those maps. S tier for solid game. Goldeneye Rogue Agent. This game typifies everything I hate about the modern Call of Duty franchise, as well as just modern first-person shooters in general. Levels that take hours, the inability to hold more than 2 weapons, enemies that eat up your health bar in less than a second, which forces you to have to take cover for about 30 seconds to suck your thumb until the red screen goes away, walk about 2 more steps, and then do it all over again. Which is a real shame, because the first level of this game is interesting. You get to see Bond die, which is something that had never been done before. And on top of that, I love the inventive mechanic of the Eye of Gold. You get force field powers. You get the ability to paralyze your enemies, to be able to activate switches from a distance. But it is not enough to make this a halfway decent game. Makes a great multiplayer game, though. I also love that the game devs put in a code to just unlock everything. If you play this game, only do it for the multiplayer. D tier. From Russia with love. In ways, a spiritual sequel to Everything or Nothing. However, much like how I said EA was polishing up their act, I feel like the gameplay in this one is just a little bit better. The aiming system was always a little bit finicky in Everything or Nothing, but I feel like From Russia with Love was able to develop it just a little bit better. I will admit, while I love this game, there are such feelings of bittersweetness whenever I finish it, because I'm reminded that this was the last great Bond game that was officially released anyway. We'll get to that. It's almost like the equivalent of reliving fond childhood memories. Sure, it's fun to visit there, but eventually you just have to wake up and realize that you gotta live in the real world. And that's the feeling I get whenever I finish this game. I have a fun time doing it, but when I get to the end, it leaves me kind of depressed. And I am also in the camp that this game needs a remaster. This is the last performance that Sir Sean Connery gave as James Bond. And what's fun is that there are unlockables where there are a few interviews with the late, great actor. It's a fun unlockable, but a little disappointed with all the fun stuff that you could get in Everything or Nothing. I was hoping maybe after you 100%ed this game, you would get some sort of fantastic weapon or whatnot, or perhaps a change of clothes. Maybe like a animated mode that's in the style of what the cover looks like. Now that would have been interesting. On top of that, I think the other reason this game needs a remaster is it's fun. I feel like games these days don't really know what fun is anymore. A tier. Goldeneye Wii. I feel like the report of the week was able to summarize my feelings on this game in this small clip.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
When I first saw that initial trailer, I was like, wow, a remaster of Goldeneye? Look at how detailed the dam looks. Oh, Daniel Craig is playing Bond. Yeah, I can roll with it. I thought the first few levels were decent, but after a while, I wondered why I couldn't hold more than 3 weapons, why the levels were taking so long, and how come enemies chowed down that health bar faster than I would do at a Chinese buffet. I did play through to the end of this game because, well, I think it's a good game, but I think it is an awful Bond game. multiplayer could be fun, but the issue with it is you have to select which weapons you want to start with. Can't you just select what weapons you want to pick up on the map rather than being restricted to only 4 weapons you could potentially play with? On top of that, I feel like it was a requirement to play through the Man with the Golden Gun game mode. It felt like it was the only thing keeping this as a Bond game rather than a Call of Duty game. Also, I feel like it's quite the achievement to make the rocket launcher the most boring weapon you can use in this game. It takes forever to load, and by the time you get a shot out, the explosion is just not nearly as impactful. Probably the biggest sin of all against this game. You can unlock things. Just like the original game, you do this through time trials. And it's an awful strike against this game that you have to sit through the cutscenes, but the idea that the timer for the time trials still happens while the cutscenes are in action. There is just no excuse. I figure there was one other fun thing I wanted to show you as well. So there are codes that you can put in as well. There's like a little area you can enter cheat codes and whatnot, and this is what they are. In addition to the Golden Gun mode, I always wanted to play the DK mode as well, and tag mode is also fun because basically as soon as you touch each other, you both just explode. But like I say, it just doesn't make up for what this game was advertised as being, as well as what this game needed to be. D tier. Goldeneye Source. I felt betrayed. All I wanted was the original Goldeneye with modern graphics and all the advancements that we have gotten to the multiplayer scene since Nightfire. It'd be some time before any of us knew about the cancelled Xbox Live arcade version, which was just that. However, I was content with GoldenEye Source. I remember when I first saw this game, it was like the equivalent of waking up as a woman. I was crying tears of sheer joy, as this was everything I ever wanted from GoldenEye Wii. A little sore that there was no single player, but it made up for all the faults that GoldenEye Wii created for me. S tier. 007 Legends. Comparing GoldenEye Wii and comparing 007 Legends, it's like comparing Twisted Metal 3 to Twisted Metal 4. They're both very different, but yet somehow the latter feels like it was a game that the team wanted to work on. They weren't held back by restraints of the previous entries. They just wanted to do their own thing. And as such, I feel like 007 Legends is a better game. But yet, I find myself returning to GoldenEye Wii more than I do this game. Which in terms of all the other Bond games, not very often, but more often than less often. Also, I'm still pretty sore that I have yet to experience the Skyfall level that has been heavily advertised. Maybe if I got the Wii U version, it would already be on the disc rather than have to download it from a link that no longer exists. C tier. Goldfinger 64. From 2012 until now, there has been no official Bond game released outside of mobile. As such, I am very happy that the GoldenEye modding community, as well as other modding communities, are keeping the Bond franchise alive through video games. And on top of that, Goldfinger 64 was able to scratch an itch that I have never been able to in my life. A chance to experience what it was like to play GoldenEye for the first time. I was basically born with the game and don't really remember the first time. It was just always there in my life. Well, it could be quite a challenge on console. I love it and still break it out on occasion. A tier. Spy Who Loved Me. I'll have to admit, I'm a little too close to this one to be objective, so I'm just gonna Just put that right here. Living Daylights 64. I'm mostly putting this here to try to give the project a little more recognition. As of now, the project is laying dormant with occasional edits being put in here and there. As for now, there's only one playable level, but several others you can walk through. It also has all the characters, new weapon models, a new sound font, and even new sound effects for those weapons. This project reminds me a lot of a scene from Mulan, where the dad is looking around, admiring the cherry blossoms. He leans over to Mulan and says, "But look, this one's late. I bet when it blooms that it'll be the most beautiful of all." And that is very much how I'm looking at this project. By the time it does get finished, Goldeneye might even be completely decompiled at that point. So you might be able to see features in this ROM hack that have never been seen in any other game since. I do hope it continues, because what little does exist is very promising. Feels a bit unfair to rate it in this state, but I'll give it an A tier. So that's all I've got for my James Bond video game tier list. Yeah, I think that's about it. Although I will mention that Agent Under Fire, as well as From Russia with Love, both of these games are just, I would probably place like right in the middle between A and S. Both are fantastic games and ones I like to break out on occasion. But it's hard to necessarily say if it's the gold standard. These are definitely gold-plated, I'll just say that much. Just like last time, I'm very curious to know where your tier list would differ from mine. Is Bloodstone or Quantum of Solace worth trying to track down a copy of these days? And when it comes to Quantum of Solace, which version? The one for the Xbox 360 and the Wii, or the one for the PlayStation 2? Until next time, keep having fun.